having KYC and AML. I believe we can do that at a much lower cost.
Okay.
I believe that technology can lower costs.
What you just said, though, is you agree the system is working, it's just not working as efficiently as you like to see it. Well, so I accept that. Something else you said a minute ago, a while ago you said that you want to offer more financial services as you go down the road. And just a minute ago you said you want to offer no banking services. So which one is it? Are you going to have deposits down the road that you pay interest on? Are you going to take deposits at all? Are you going to have lending that you're going to be doing to some of the customers? What kind of financial services or banking services are you intending to grow into?
Congressman, it's too early, but if we are to engage in those services, we will partner with existing banks and financial institutions the same way that other payments companies have done it. And I'm talking here exclusively about the Libra wallet, and I think I need to be precise here.
Okay, with regards to the specific assets that you're going to hold in the reserve, who puts the money in, who puts the assets in to begin with, who owns those assets, what do you do with any dividends or interest or any returns on those investments that you make, who shares in those profits?
Congressman, the way the reserve is built is if consumers buy into Libra, the fiat money they use to buy Libra ends up in the reserve and is actually custodied with large banks, or potentially a better form of custody, even depending on the outcome of some of the conversations we're having with the G7 working group and the recommendations that they will come with. And so the reserve is always proportional to the number of Libra coins in circulation. And if the reserve generates a return, it will be used for two things. Number one, to pay for the association and the operation of the whole Libra network. And number two, to return some of the investment back to original investors and backers of the system that will put a lot of resources to get it off the ground.
One of the things that, as we look at this, if I have a business and I'm trying to sell, 1,000 widgets to some company in France, and I want to use the Libra system to be able to facilitate this. When I get done with this transaction, I have an income off that, and so I have to report that to the IRS. So is there a cost to change back from the Libra to the dollars, so that I then can explain to the IRS the kind of transaction and kind of money I'm earned off this transaction? Is there a fee for doing that when you transfer it back from Libras to dollars?
Congressman, there will be probably small fees, because there will be agents and exchanges that will be involved in the process of converting fiat into Libra and back to fiat. But from an IRS and tax standpoint, as far as the Libra wallet is concerned, we will have the proper tools built into the product so that people can report their taxes.
Okay, my time is up. Thank you.
The gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Scott, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Yes, Mr. Marcus, over here, this direction, this way. All right. Now, I've listened very attentively to your testimony and to the response of several of my colleagues' questions here, Ms. Waters, even Mr. McHenry, and you keep mentioning your white paper as a defense to the answer to their questions. But I want to call your attention to the fact that neither your white paper nor your subsequent Facebook posts offered any concrete details as to how you plan to implement or enforce strong anti-money laundering, how you plan to enforce know your customer protections, and most importantly, to ensure, that's what all of us are concerned about, the safety of our financial system. So right now, tell us, what specifically, don't say the white paper, what are you going to do? What do you see as the responsibilities of Libra to combat anti-money laundering, to protect our financial system? Could you tell us right now? Just point it.
Yes, Congressman. Two parts to that answer. First, at the Libra Association itself. Libra Association will be based in Switzerland, but will still register with FinCEN, and as a result, we'll have an AML program, and we'll have guidelines for all the members to enforce the right KYC standards, AML, CFT programs. As far as the Calibra wallet is concerned, for every account opened, we will ensure that everyone KYCs appropriately with government-issued ID, and we'll have very strong AML programs.
Okay, but what about this, Mr. Marcus? Currently, the full responsibility to file suspicious activity reports are on our banks or other money service businesses, which law enforcement uses to investigate and prosecute criminal terrorists. And in your July post, you spoke only of the ability for these law enforcement and regulators to conduct their own analysis of off-the-chain activity. So, do you feel that this represents a shift away from Libra's own responsibility to monitor and enforce anti-money laundering or customer protections?
No, Congressman. The reason I wrote this is that the approach that Libra is taking is using a blockchain, and
Hey, I just want to appreciate everybody and say what's up to everybody, first of all. So this is big stuff. I did tell a lot of my people in my Telegram chat that, at the beginning of the first hearing yesterday, I shifted over some BTC to Binance. I'm in Canada, so I can't go long or short here on various different futures platforms, but the markets did tumble. I think Bitcoin went down 1,000 less. So a lot of people are saying the same thing might happen today. It's very interesting. Let's see what happens, guys. All right? Thanks for tuning in.
reports.
All right, so now you're marketing this currency as a new entity to financial services. And with that will surely come new and innovative methods of committing financial crimes. What you bring is new. Criminals out there are going to invent ways to deal with it. So let me ask you, what are you anticipating as some of the new ways that criminals may attempt to export and exploit Libra for illicit use?
This guy's a dummy.
And how are you combating?
Okay, I just want to hop in there for a quick sec.
I mean,
and I'm so sorry, I'll stop this. But how about the criminals that use fiat currency to fund terrorist organizations? It's the same thing. It's like a hammer. You could build a house with a hammer, or you could use it to smash someone's head open. Now, what are you going to ban, the hammer or the person? Throw them in jail, right? It's not the freaking tool that's the issue. It's the person. So there's still, terrorist organizations are funded through fiat currency. So what the frig? That's one of the most stupidest questions these congressmen have been focusing on. Anyways, sorry.
That the on and off ramps are properly regulated with proper KYC controls, the proper way to monitor activity and report it with new technologies, and I think that this system might be potentially better on these fronts.
Thank you, Mr. Marcus.
The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Huizinga, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And there is so much in so little time. I'm going to try to go through and get to some new territory. I was not planning on doing this, but you had used the term fiat currency a couple of times, and thought I knew what that meant, and it seemed a little odd that you were using it in the way that that you were, and so I went to Wikipedia. Fiat money is a currency without intrinsic value that has been established as money. Fiat money does not have use value.
These guys will never understand
maintains
crypto.
its value, or because parties engage in exchange to agree on its value. Wikipedia might need to update its definition a little bit, because we see that that people are using cryptocurrencies with no backing. And I am curious, why do you feel the need to have a reserve? Because it strikes me as you're using a fiat currency to create a fiat currency and to have a reserve of that?
Congressman, the reason we have a reserve is that we believe that to create a high-quality payment tool, we need that digital currency to be very stable. As we've seen with a number of other currencies out there, digital currencies, they're very volatile, and as a result, there are not very good medium of exchange or payment tools.
So it's a trust issue?
No, Congressman. It's a stability issue. It's an inherent
I guess stability and
quality that
trust.
good money has, which is, if it's stable, then it's good money. If it's not, then it's not.
But couldn't your stability be influenced by people's trust levels of the currency?
Yes and no. So, in other words, the way that
You fit perfectly into Washington with both a yes and a no, all in, without
subtle,
hesitation.
it's
okay. It does strike me, though, as a little bit, as many non-banked and underbanked, as you have said, is one of the goals of trying to get in it, get them involved in the financial space. Oftentimes, they are not in that space because they have a distrust of financial institutions, and it doesn't take anyone much time to find some well-publicized issues of trust with a number of the companies that are involved in Libra, and so I'm not sure exactly how you're going.
Okay, guys, quick interrupt. So they're talking about trust. Okay, one thing certain is this: I don't trust Facebook. Okay, like, giving out our information, our privacy information to various different advertisement companies, all that stuff. We all know that. But you know who I don't trust? I certainly do not trust the government. That's why cryptocurrency is what? A trustless system. There's no human beings involved like that to centralize it, to be the authoritative figure for us to just like have to trust and believe. That's why crypto is trustless, okay? Anyways.
And it seems that it's more of a platypus to me, that it kind of evolves in its different parts. And I'm curious, are you able to actually maintain the core and essence of a cryptocurrency and asset if you're really under all this regulation?
We believe we can, Congressman, because we believe that in order for any form of digital currency and payment system to reach mass adoption.
So would you like to see all of the other crypto assets and cryptocurrencies under the exact same regulation that you are, or are you trying to create and carve out this new product?
Congressman, I can't speak for other crypto assets.
Well, certainly you must have some thoughts on that, because if you're looking at it going, well, that's not working for them, otherwise, why would you be coming and asking for this regulatory burden?
Because we believe that this is a digital currency. If you compare it to other digital currencies or cryptocurrencies, it serves a different purpose. This one is to serve a purpose of payment. It's a payment tool. And as a result, when it reaches so many people, we believe that appropriate regulation and oversight is required.
So as we were having a little confab up here, and my friend French Hill said, this, you might be the equivalent of American Express traveler's checks of days of old.
I don't think of it that way, Congressman, but...
Okay.
What the fuck?
Well, yeah, for the lower dais and the staff, those were things, they were actually paper, and you carried them with you.
These guys are...
You bought them at a bank, right? You actually put in a fiat currency in towards it.
Wow.
Oh,
my God. Seriously, these guys are so outdated. It's like getting your Super Nintendo and blowing that cartridge. These guys are so outdated, bro. It's unbelievable. I think the antitrust law was made quite back in 1890. That shit needs to be updated, bro. It doesn't work for tech companies. It really doesn't.
Is that true or not true? Because you had said earlier that you have.
Congressman, we have been in touch with FINMA. The other agency was the privacy agency that we have not reached out to, but FINMA we have had continuous engagement with.
And I'll be following up with some written questions, so thank you.
The gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Perlmutter, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And I'm going to kind of take off where Mr. Huizinga just left off, just to help me understand the deal. So I have $5. I go and I buy 1 token of Libra for $5. You take that $5, and what do you do with it?
All right, let's get a good laugh at this one.
The $5 you would use to buy Libra would end up being in the reserve. And so in the current contemplated basket, it would mean that $2.50 will be in the reserve, and another $2.50 of your dollars will be in a basket of euro, pound, yen, et cetera, in the reserve. And as a result, because the reserve is 1-for-1, your Libra unit of value will always be backed by the same value in the reserve at all times, guaranteeing stability and low volatility.
And that reserve is in the cloud, that reserve is in a bank, that reserve is where?
Cold wallet?
That reserve is custodied with very large global banks that provide custodial services to a number of companies. But this is something that we're also in discussions with the G7 working group to ensure that there's proper regulatory oversight in how the reserve is managed and how it's custodied as well.
All right, so we've got this medium, this currency of some sort called Libra, and now it's half here, half there. I want to use it. I want to buy something in Paraguay. So, which if I were using dollars was going to cost me $4. So how do I do that? Do I then go to CoLibra? And CoLibra is like my credit card, and it wires 4/5 of a token of a Libra to Paraguay?
Congressman, you would use any of the wallets, Calibra being one of them, to transfer
This is just comical
the
right
money
now.
that you wanted to transfer to that other country. And the way it would work is the same way that you would use any payment apps here in the U.S., like Venmo or PayPal.
So it's a wiring system, more or less, except that I'm using Libra. I mean, CoLibra is a wiring system. I mean, it's just Venmo. You know, I Venmo my daughter $20. Okay, it's just done, it's wired, it's over. I mean, I could have gone to the bank and they could have wired it to her. But I use Venmo.
It's very similar to your experience on Venmo, Congressman.
See, I think what we're struggling with is, what are
Why
you?
switch?
I mean, you're a medium, you're an intermediary, you're facilitating financial transactions. And it isn't as if we haven't had problems with that in the history of the world. You got a money changer in the process, turning my buck into a Libra to a euro. So that's biblical. You've got, you know, I mean, the transaction is something we've had from the beginning of time.
Right.
But it's a faster kind of wiring and more immediate transaction.
It's sending money across
am I
borders without
mistaken in
any
that?
intermediates, bro.
No, Congressman. It's also much
Yeah.
lower cost for the people who end up needing it the most.
And I appreciate that. I mean, but for us, you know, we've seen banks fail. You know, we had the old saying, what's good for GM is good for America. And they had to go through a Chapter 11 back in the recession. You know, I don't think that'll happen to Facebook or whoever's backing this whole process. But it's possible. It's certainly possible. And so our responsibility is to your depositors or the people that buy these tokens or that use your credit card system. And so we're trying to figure out what kinds of regulations. And I think you're getting really good questions from both sides of the aisle, because we all have this same question for you. And that's the resistance you're feeling, because we think you're a bank, but you're not quite like a bank. And if you're a bank, we regulate the heck out of you, because we've seen a lot of people lose money where there hasn't been regulation. So that's the resistance that I feel. I want to support your innovation. I want to support the efficiency that you people believe you're bringing to the table. But I also don't want anybody getting hurt here.
Congressman, we're completely aligned on that. We don't want anyone hurt, and we want the proper regulatory oversight, and this is why we have announced our plans very early, and we're here and engaging with all of the regulatory bodies here in the U.S. and around the world to ensure that we have the right regulatory framework and oversight, and we address all the concerns that were raised today, yesterday, and that were raised by Chairman Powell and others.
Thank you for your
Can I say
testimony.
something?
The gentleman from Wisconsin's Mr. Duffy.
Oh, is this my favorite goon? This is one of my favorite
I got to
cronies.
tell you, this is absolutely brilliant, innovative, creative, and to come from Facebook and to leverage your network.
Now break it all down.
is, pretty amazing. I was shocked at how
But,
was.
wait for the
That's
but.
our pride.
But.
But quickly, who
But,
gets
but,
to use
did you hear the but? He kind of
Libra
muttered
and
it, but.
Libra?
So anyone that can open a Libra account, go through KYC in countries where we can operate.
You know, this is a $20 bill. Do you know who can use a $20 bill?
Yes, Congressman.
Who can use it? Or who can, maybe better question, who can't use a $20 bill?
I believe the answer to your question is anyone.
Everybody can use a $20 bill. This $20 bill doesn't discriminate on anything. You could be a murderer, you can say horrible things, you can say great things. This $20 bill can be used by every single person that possesses it. With regard to your network, can Milo Yiannopoulos or Louis Farrakhan use Libra?
Congressman.
And I bring that up because, you know, both those two individuals have been banned from Facebook.
Congressman, first, I want to say that.
No, simple question. Come, this, give me. We only have 5 minutes. You got to answer a question so we can do the best job in vetting what you want to do.
I know, but we must be thoughtful about those issues, Congressman. So I'm trying to respond appropriately. So, you know, on one side, I just want to stress that a platform that enables you to communicate and share ideas, Facebook, we believe, is a platform that accepts ideas across the political spectrum. It has to protect
Somewhat disagree
from
with
hate
that,
speech and others. And so that's one thing. When it comes to money,
I don't know. Can Milo use it? Can Louis Farrakhan use this system? They've been banned from Facebook. Can they use it? Yes or no?
Congressman?
Yes or no?
I don't know yet, Congressman,
Okay.
because we
If I'm a gun dealer who I can use a $20 bill because, you know, if it's a lawful gun, that happens all across America. On Facebook, you don't allow gun sales. So can a gun dealer who's abiding by American law, can they use your system?
So this is a question
It's
that
KYC,
is
bro.
really important to get right, Congressman, and we haven't written a policy yet.
See, and that's what concerns me. I love what you're doing, but when we say we at Facebook are going to set the social policies of who can use this cryptocurrency, in a way, we get to set the social policy of who's in and who's out. And what's great about this is everybody gets to use it. And what I fear is, maybe in a roundabout way, what's happening in China with their social scoring. You get the right social score, you can get a loan, you can get an apartment, you can access the train. Maybe Facebook is doing the same thing here, where if you meet our social standards.
Look, sorry to interrupt, but if these guys want to talk about tracking who uses Libra coin, and first of all, I'm not for Libra coin, I want to make that clear, but the real crooks are actually the congressmen and the government, okay? Because, you know, they've always been fixated on a stable coin, guys, and I do sorry for interrupting this, but I have to get this off my chest. You know, they always are attacking USDT for stable coin. They don't have, you know, real reserves for that. They got fractional reserves, all of these things. And then USDC came out. JP Morgan made their own stable coin. How come they're not attacking them? Why? Because JP Morgan are, you know, that's one of the biggest banks in the world, and they sleep in bed with the U.S. government. So they let them do as they please. Facebook is a real threat to other banks because they're not a really registered bank. But if they actually launch this crypto, and with their 1.9 billion users, they could definitely have so much more control over things, right? That they could be right up par with the government. So that's why it's a problem.
This is why I believe we need to be very thoughtful about this, and my commitment to you
I think
is
the
that
thoughtful answer is, I'm going to behave like the fiat currency. The thoughtful answer is, if you abide by the law, you have access to it. That is the thoughtful and the right answer, but you haven't given me that, which gives me great pause and concern that the model of Libra is going to be the model of Facebook where we get to decide, and that concerns me. I'm also concerned about the data privacy and how you're going to use the data. A lot of us have had concerns about the data use on Facebook. How will you use this data? Because now what we post on Facebook and who we're friends with is one thing. How we spend our money is really powerful information, and you have access to that too. And I'd like to dig deeper with you on that point, but also, you know, the freedom and liberty that comes from the 20, I think you should offer that same freedom and liberty on your network, and maybe we can talk more about that later. And I appreciate you coming and testifying, and kudos on the innovation.
Yo, where's the buy Bitcoin guy? You know, the guy with the sign, buy Bitcoin, the sign? He needs to pop up behind him, eh?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Marcus, thank you for being here. This has been one of the more interesting hearings we've had in a little while. In the last Congress, I had the honor of chairing the New Democrat Coalition, about 104 Democrats. And if we do one thing, we get excited about innovation. But this is not an app that measures your heartbeat. This is a complete overhaul of the circulatory system of the global economy. So a lot of the concern you're hearing here, I think, is just around its sort of shocking ambition. And I want to ask you a specific question and take you through a specific scenario that gets at a larger concern that I have. And just so that folks at home can kind of follow along, let's just imagine that I'm an American user of Libra. And my rent is $1,000 a month. And just for simplicity's sake, let's say that this month it's 1,000 Libra a month. Now, because Libra is backed by a basket of currencies, let's just imagine that one of the currencies, sterling, devalues dramatically in 2 weeks. I think, if I recall my banking and economic days, that I will find that in the next month, my rent in Libra will be, let's just pick a number, 1,100 Libra, but still $1,000 a month. So you know what I'm getting at. Users will have the profoundly unfamiliar experience of assuming foreign currency risk. Am I correct in that?
Congressman, yes, there will be fluctuation, but the way that we're intending to design the reserve, again, in consultation with the G7 Working Group of Finance Ministries and central banks, is going to be in such a way that we have looked historically at the volatility that the dollar would have had in the last 20 years compared to Libra with the proposed basket. And if you look at the fact that half of the basket is dollars, it should be fairly stable. That being said...
But wait, you acknowledge, I got it, you acknowledge that consumers everywhere, users of Libra, will for the first time, if they have previously been using their domestic currency to purchase domestic goods, they will experience foreign currency risk.
They will have some degree of volatility.
Right. Okay, so my question, I think that's an important point for people to understand, and I'm not saying that's good or bad, but traditionally, the regulatory apparatus here has said that if you're going to assume an unfamiliar risk, that risk will be disclosed to you with full transparency. And the mechanism we have traditionally used to disclose that kind of risk is through public filings and disclosure. Now, you said this is not an exchange-traded fund. I'm a former banker. This looks to me exactly like an exchange-traded fund backed by a series of short-term instruments in foreign currency. It looks exactly like an ETF to me. It even has a creation and remittance mechanism. So elaborate for me on why this is not an exchange-traded fund, and if there's any ambiguity, what I really am getting at here is you need to clear, if in fact the regulators determine that it's an ETF, you need to clear 1940 Act registration hurdles, which that may sound technical, but that's designed to protect that rent payer who discovers that their rent went up for reasons they don't understand. So tell me why this is not an exchange-traded fund.
Congressman, 3 points of why we believe it is not. Despite the fact that you're right, that it uses some operational mechanisms that are similar, we believe that it is not, because Libra is a payment tool. And typically, if the question you're asking is whether we believe...
But wait, I need to stop you there. The SEC doesn't say if you're a payment tool, you're not an exchange-traded fund. The SEC says if you have a security that is backed by other securities, you're an exchange-traded fund. And you may quibble with me that you're not a security, but you're certainly backed by other securities. Is that not correct?
Congressman, it's mainly currencies, but I do want to answer your question. First, we believe that no one will buy Libra as an investment because it is designed for stability. That is number one. Number two is that when you look at the definition of the securities, or how we test, that has been used by the SEC, it actually uses the idea that you invest for a profit that will result in the management of the product. And this product is not a product, it's a payment tool. It's not going to be actively managed. And you cannot use an ETF for payments. This is actually designed as a payment tool to enable people to retain value, not to appreciate value.
So since I'm almost out of time, let's come back to my original question. How will you make transparent what you acknowledged is foreign currency risk that consumers will face. How do you envision doing that?
Congressman, as far as the Calibra wallet is concerned, you will have transparency and education built into the product.
Okay, thank you. My time has expired. Thank you, Madam Chair.
It's upside down, but I'm going to be the guy with the buy Bitcoin sign, okay? Because I don't see him in Congress right now.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Mr. Marcus. We all say we want to encourage innovation, and I appreciate your innovation, and I really do want to encourage innovation. And I'd just like to kind of walk through a timeline so we know where we are in the innovation process here. And correct me if I'm wrong, or I'll just ask a couple yes or no questions. It was about 60 days ago you announced the idea, correct?
Congressman, it was on June 18th, yes.
June 8th. That was the white paper was on June 18th, but I thought in May you put out there was nothing in May? Okay, so we're 30 days from the white paper. So this is a really early congressional hearing. I just want to, and with that, I'll understand that you won't have the answer to every question. I do appreciate your commitment to be willing to ensure that you, meet all the regulatory hurdles and comply with the law. The value I see in this innovation is, of course, for cross-border payments because that's so expensive today. And second, for the unbanked, and you talked about both of those domestically. But can you just tell us what's in it for somebody domestically that already has a bank account, is there, and isn't looking for cross-border payments? I don't see a big application for those folks.
Congressman, I'm glad you asked because I doubt that people will pay their rents with Libra anytime soon, to just relay the question earlier. The general use case that we believe will happen in the U.S. When you have a bank account.
It's pretty much a bunch of the same questions, similar questions over and over, but just kind of like reworded. It's kind of like those YouTubers who put up content, but it's the same empty content over and over, I don't know, I'm just saying. I don't know why I reference to that, but you know what I mean.
If money comes back, you will redeposit it back to your bank account.
And so you don't expect people to be holding Libra, because the point is to have a stable currency, not a volatile currency. That's where the value comes in cross-border payments, because about 60% of the world's population lives in a country that does not have a stable currency. So I appreciate that, and I think there is some value in that. I do have some concerns about the potential of money laundering. As you know, cryptocurrencies and the Silk Road sort of started as a way to anonymously finance illicit activity, or as one of the early things that was used for. So I'm concerned about cross-border payments that then are going to people that have sort of bad intent. And I'm curious, will you put a limit on the amount of any individual transaction? And I know, again, it's early. I recognize the timeline of where we are. But do you expect to put a limit on how much somebody can transfer in Libra to someone else?
Congressman, we're going to continue our engagement, notably with Treasury, on this topic. And my expectation is that there will be limits depending on where the money is sent or where it's coming from. My hope is that between two consumers of American regulated wallets like Calibra and others that will have proper KYC and AML, we can avoid having artificial limits. But we will probably need limits across the network to ensure that those activities can. And
I'm not asking you to put artificial limits in. I was just curious, and obviously I want to make sure you comply with Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering, because that is that's complying with the law, which you said you'd do, and I think that's really important.
Congressman.
Do you expect to have the Libra Association vote to exclude companies like Chick-fil-A or anybody else that might have social views that you disagree with?
Congressman, this is actually not going to be my decision or Facebook's decision. It's going to have to be a decision that is going to be taken by the Council of Members of the Libra Association and the Libra Association itself.
And I recognize that. I would just urge you, to not use this for social engineering, but use it to to meet the intent that we talked about of helping the unbanked and helping people with cross.
I do pardon this for a very important advertisement. Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. Just buy Bitcoin already. What piss are you guys spewing out of your mouth right now? Honestly, all this bullshit ain't gonna get us anywhere. Just buy the damn Bitcoin. Where's my buy Bitcoin sign, dude, man? We missed you, pal. We need you to stick your head out there behind the crowds and show that sign. But hey, I guess I just did it. Anyways, back to the program.
From California, Mr. Sherman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, we need to get Mark Zuckerberg here. This is the biggest thing, or it tries to be the biggest thing. This
Zuckerberg is shitting his pants at home, bro. That's why you got this guy here to come
one
for
of his
him.
employees here. This is Zuckerberg's program. Now, we're told by some that innovation is always good, the most innovative thing.
Yo, Mikey Mike is getting called out, bro. They want him on the hot seat.
Of flying 2 airplanes into towers. That's the most consequential innovation, although this may do more to endanger America than even that. People call this the Libra. It's not the Libra. Nobody, if it finally happens, nobody's going to call it Libra. They're going to call it a Zuckbuck. This is Zuckerberg's baby.
Zuckbuck. That's funny.
Now, Mr. Marcus gave me 2 promises in our conversation yesterday, both of which he knows they won't comply with. First, he promises that all the know your customer and anti-money laundering is going to be adhered to. But that applies only to the Calibra wallet, and he hopes to have hundreds of other wallets created by others. Keep in mind, as to Bitcoin, 46% of the transactions, according to one academic study, are for drug dealers and other nefarious operations. Hamas advertises they want Bitcoin contributions. Bitcoin, however, has a problem. There's no off-ramp. There's no way to just go buy something with a Bitcoin. You can eventually with a Zuckbuck. And finally, the white paper put out by Facebook says, the Libra protocol does not link accounts to real-world identity. A user is free to create multiple accounts by generating multiple key pairs.
The Zuckbuck.
So this is a godsend to drug dealers and sanctions evaders and tax evaders. God. Zuckerberg has billions, but he doesn't have the authority to print more until he gets this. We went from the U.S. dollar. We went from the U.S. dollar being linked to gold, and we only printed a number of dollars equal to the gold we had to the dollar becoming valuable in and of itself, and now we can print. How many dollars we print has nothing to do with how much gold we have in store. Mr. Marcus promised me that they would never do that, but then he testifies here that the Libra Association will make all the decisions and Facebook won't be in control. So much for those promises. America's power comes from the power of the dollar more, I think, than the power of our military. It lowers the interest rates in the United States by at least $1,000 a family. The seigniorage has allowed the Fed to transfer $100 billion in some years, so often less, to the Treasury. Our sanctions in Iran, which I've worked on for over 20 years, are effective only because of the power of the dollar. And we are able to go after human traffickers, drug dealers, and tax evaders because of the power of the dollar.
Oh, my God.
We're told that they're going to solve 2 problems. With this, they're not going to solve those problems. Cross-border transmission, let's do that in dollars. Or let's send Quitzels to Guatemala. You've got a multi-billion-dollar company, trillion-dollar company. Help people make those transmissions at low fees, but what, use dollars or use the local currency? And then we're told they're going to deal with the unbanked. If they wanted to help the unbanked, they wouldn't be using a cryptocurrency because cryptocurrencies are illegal in India, the place where they have more unbanked than anywhere else. They don't want to solve those problems. They want to solve 2 other problems. Problem number 1, Zuckerberg can't print money yet. And problem number 2, Zuckerberg is under attack because he invades the privacy of ordinary Americans and sells it to the highest bidder. He needs to be an advocate for privacy.
Oh, boy.
And so he is creating a device which will provide privacy to drug dealers, human traffickers, terrorists, tax evaders, and sanctions evaders. We need Zuckerberg here because we need to tell him that he probably has the power to push this through. He'll throw around tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in Washington. His supporters will get huge zuck bucks in U.S. dollars. 100 lawyers will tell him that what he's doing is legal and therefore he's safe. But someone with an understanding of the politics of this country needs to explain to Mr. Zuckerberg that if cryptocurrency is used to finance the next horrific terrorist attack against Americans, 100 lawyers standing in a row, charging $2,000 an hour, are not going to protect his rear end from the wrath of the American people. This is an attempt
you're going to protect us?
Transfer enormous power from America to Facebook and a number of its allies. I'm surprised we need Zuckerberg here.
I would love to see that. That guy shits his pants, bro. Zuckerberg can't handle the heat.
For 5 minutes.
That's why you hired this dude to go there, right?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I think given the commentary we've heard in this committee hearing today and some of the very pointed questions directed your way, Mr. Marcus, I think we are discovering why a decision has been made to locate in Switzerland as opposed to the United States. Having said that, I do want to address some of the concerns that have been raised today and ask you about them. I think there are some legitimate questions that we can ask, but it does seem like in Washington, whenever the private sector produces some kind of innovation or new discovery or new advancement, politicians and bureaucrats rush to criticize and regulate. And there's always a presumption that the private sector innovating is a bad thing. I think the presumption should be totally reversed. I think we should presume that innovation is good. It presents enormous opportunity for financial inclusion, reducing friction in transactions. The opportunities that are created by this innovation is laudable. It's to be commended. That's not to say we shouldn't ask questions, but the presumption in this hearing room today seems to be in the wrong place. Let me ask you about the possibilities, the opportunities that this presents, particularly with respect to financial inclusion. What percentage of users on Facebook are underbanked or unbanked in the United States, Mr. Marcus?
Congressman, I don't have the answer for Facebook specifically, but I know that over 8 million households in the U.S.
Anybody into TA? Check the TA for me right now on the markets. I'm on the fundamental analysis side. If anybody's into that TA, let me know what's going on right now with the markets. Oh shit, my bad.
2.6 billion users are unbanked or underbanked.
Because there's no way for us to know that information.
Okay. Do you have any idea how many users of Facebook live in rural America or so-called bank deserts?
I don't have the exact number, Congressman, but we can. I can find out and follow up with your office.
Well, I mean, if you know or don't know, we'd like to know that. How will Libra and Project Libra promote greater financial inclusion in the United States?
Congressman, we believe that having the ability to access digital money where you can safeguard the value that you want to safeguard, but more importantly, transact with the people that you want to transact for free, simply with just a $40 smartphone and a basic data plan is something that would enhance the ability for people, even here in the U.S., despite the fact that we believe this is not going to be the main market for Libra. It will solve problems for lots of people here in the U.S., notably the very people who are unbanked today and send money abroad home, which makes for the bulk of the income of their families back at home.
Well, I won't ask a question, but I will just jump on to the point that Mr. Duffy was making earlier. I think that the opportunity for financial inclusion with Project Libra is enormous and very positive. I share Mr. Duffy's concern about what that inclusion actually means. And
just want to mute this for a sec. Elon Musk actually brought up a great point. He says Fiat money is also used for terrorist attacks as well. Criminals will use fiat too. So what's the point of criminalizing cryptocurrency? Very good point there, Elon Musk. I actually brought up that same point earlier as well. It's true. They've been using it for decades and decades already. So if that's their it seems to be their number one argument. You know, how are you going to stop terrorists from using it? They bring up Silk Road, all of these things, right? But no one could discredit that terrorists has been using, or criminals has been using fiat to fund their organizations, criminal activity for decades. So that's a very stupid argument, right? And I just hate to see these guys being pretty much fed to the wolves, like in a room, and you're circled around all of these congressmen and congress ladies, and they're just ganging up on you. You can't even answer the question accordingly. Yes or no, yes or no. They can pretty much put words in your mouth, and then you say yes or no, one-word answers, and they could pretty much, well, you could incriminate yourself indirectly, right? Elon Musk also says, what's the point of criminalizing cryptocurrency when the fiat currency is to use by criminals? Exactly. You know, imagine if they wanted to like keep the entire, all of America, like, so, okay, with the internet, imagine if America said, look, you guys cannot use this technology because we do not know if it's safe, or whatever the reasons are, right? Oh, criminals may be using it, terrorists are using it, whatever. And then the rest of the world went on with the internet, right? We, you know, the way we are connected today, right? Through YouTube, through the same very internet. We're hyper connected today. Do you know how far behind the American citizens will be? This is very similar. We could compare this to blockchain tech and cryptocurrencies. It's the same exact way. And now we're getting more independent, right? Before we used to do what? In the 80s, right? I was a kid. I used to go on TV, put it to like channel 6, and the news would come up. But now we got alternate media sources because of the internet and YouTube. Same thing what crypto is providing for people. You're more liberated, and you have the freedom to send transactions across borders with next to no money, with no intermediates involved. You know, look how we trade today on Binance or BitMEX. There's no brokers there, right? It's all about excluding the middleman, and that means the government is the biggest middleman player, and they don't want to see that go. So that's what this is really about. And now Facebook is, you know, because Facebook has 1.9 billion users, they are a real threat to the government, and that's why they're attacking them. As I mentioned earlier, why aren't they attacking JP Morgan? They created a stablecoin as well. Something to think about, but let's tune into the rest of this feed before they finish.
These transactions in Libra actually would be.
Congressman, ransomware is a really important issue. And the way we're thinking about it, as far as the Calibra wallet is concerned.
No, I'm interested in Libra, all right? Libra, which is, as I understand it, an anonymous bearer instrument. Is that correct?
Congressman, it is not anonymous.
Is self-custody allowed in Libra?
Congressman, yes, within limits. And as a result, we believe that especially in countries like the U.S. and others, you will have all the wallets that will have...
I'm not worried about wallets. I'm worried about abuse of self-custody. You know, if I own the cryptographic code for a piece of Libra, do I own that Libra full stop or not?
Yes, Congressman.
Yes, you do. Okay, now if I go on the dark web and start offering to trade that, do you have any technical way of stopping me for doing that anonymously?
Congressman, yes, because there are on and off ramps, and all of the on and off ramps are properly KYC'd.
All of them?
Yes, that will be...
So that once a large fraction of Libra would be transferred into self-custody, and then there starts to be a significant flow among the self-custody entities out on the dark web or other places. How do you prevent that from actually, you know, allowing things like ransomware?
Congressman, again, a very important problem, and the way that we're tracking, the way that the association will enable tools so that law enforcement and the different wallets can understand where the movements are happening to prevent those issues is going to be one of the ways that we will address this. The other way that we will address...
So just right, we're going to have to be absolutely dependent on the fact that every single wallet is in a regulatory regime that we trust. Is that right? So if there's one wallet out in some, you know, some set of islands or something like this that doesn't follow U.S., you know, are we just out of luck there, and that all of the illicit transactions will flow through there?
No, Congressman, because if you're a U.S. resident and you want to use a wallet, the wallet offering services in the U.S. will need to be properly regulated in the U.S.
All right, we have to have an ongoing discussion. I'd like to also mention cybersecurity. One of the main jobs of FSOC is to oversee cybersecurity and systemically important firms. Now, you've seen fit to make a new programming language for here, and I spent a little while looking over that. You know, there's some creative stuff in it. Some of it's pretty much copying other things that have been done before. Some of it's brand new. But even if it was had zero creativity in it, there would still be a problem that one wrong line of code could generate a hole that could crash the entire Libra ecosystem. All right, and so the governance of that language and all the infrastructure. I understand it was my reading you're going to be distributing runtime executables and things like that as well, and so that all of that has to be bulletproof cybersecurity. And I was wondering how you're going to deal with the governance of that.
Congressman, two ways. First, we agree with you that this is of absolute importance. And the way we're dealing with that is that the move language that you're referencing will have formal verification in place to avoid issues.
To the extent that there are no compiler bugs.
Yes, but the compiler, the compiler will not execute the code if the code is not formally verified. And we have the chance of having David Dill, who is a professor from Stanford in formal verification, helping us with this issue. The other thing that I want to say is that the association will have guidelines on what third-party code can be published or not. And at the very early stages, it will be very limited to a set of templates that will avoid the issues that you're raising.
All right, but it will be an ongoing target because if Libra is taken to scale, it will be an enormously fat target for cyber attacks, intrusion, insertion of insider threats, and so on. And so this is something that is in terms of overall financial stability, probably as crucial as anything else. Thank you. Yield back.
The witness has requested a 10-minute break. The committee stands in recess.
Stand and switch your leg a little bit.
My bad, ladies and gentlemen. Where are we here? Let me put me back in there. Take this off. See if I got any. Oh, we still got you guys here. What's up, guys? I actually stepped out for a second there. Went to get a quick coffee. Didn't know that the show ended. Is that the end of it? Good timing for me, I swear. Let me just check a couple things here, guys. Somebody update me. What just happened? Are they on break or what? We got here bulletproof security with Facebook. Please stop hurting Bitcoin, Mr. Facebook. Billy Zane says he's basically calling Bitcoin bulletproof. Pause. As David Morales says, it's so stupid having all these politicians try to regulate something they know nothing about. Exactly. As I said, like, they will understand Greek much faster and better than they will crypto and Bitcoin, right? They're always fixated on terrorists and illegal activity and organizations and blah, 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 blah. McMulliser says, exactly. So are they? Oh, they're on break. They're on break. Yeah. All right. We could chill out for a bit. Man, okay, guys, I'll be very honest with everybody right now. Actually, let me see if I can bring that into play here. Where are we? Okay, give me 1 second to set up shop. I might be on the wrong side of things this time around, guys. I'm not gonna lie, but let me just set up everything here and show y'all what I'm talking about. 1 sec. Okay, here we got. Oh my goodness, my goodness. It is happening to me. All right, let's go like this. I'm not going to pull the trigger yet on that. I want to show you guys something here if I could share it. You guys, yeah, you guys would see my screen now, eh? Let me see. This should work here. Let's go check out Binance. You guys should be able to see my software briefly, and now I'm showing you Binance. So pretty much, yeah, guys, I'm not going to lie. So yesterday I told, actually I should make myself a bit bigger so you guys can actually see me. I don't know how much time y'all have, but, you know, this is what I do for a living. So, I mean, I got all day long. We could probably watch these guys out. Okay, so right now you should be able to see my screen. I think so. Somebody confirm if you're seeing my screen. That'll be great. Okay, so right now, where is it at? Bitcoin's at 9,768 in the true USD value, stable coin. What I did was yesterday, I had a feeling this was going to happen. Bitcoin was at 10,700. I told those in my Telegram chat, I said, hey, you know, the first hearing is today. This was yesterday. And, you know, it's not going to be good, right? Like, this is the thing. You know, we've been in this space, but people forget, right? How's the saying go again? History repeats itself because people forget the important facts, but they only remember dates or something like that. Like, you ever took history class and all you remember was, like, literally the answers to every question was just dates. Not really so much the important fact. So the important fact will be in the question. Like, when did Christopher Columbus discover, I don't know, Costa Rica? And then everybody puts in the date, 1942, or I mean 1942. More like what was it, 14, whatever the heck it was, right? So people always remember the dates. But if we look at Bitcoin ETF, all these announcements, what did they do? They kind of played with us. So when I knew this first hearing was coming, and let me just make sure you guys did confirm that. Where are we? Pause. Basically, can somebody confirm if you're seeing my screen because I can't really check both the software and this. Oh, whoa. Something's in the way here. Yeah, you guys can't see my screen. What the hell? Why is that in the way? Shit, something's wrong, no? Okay, you know what I'll do? I'll just go like this. I hate this. This is live. This is what happens when you go live, Francis! I guess I could go like this. I'll put that there and then just open up this guy there. Whatever. It is what it is. I can't fix it right now. I don't know what the hell the issue is, but okay, I'm gonna check for my phone. So yeah, what have we learned from Bakkt? What have we learned from Bitcoin ETFs? What happened? It's easy. They play mind games with us, right? So they'll hype something up to break it down. And what happens with the markets? Facebook announced that they're gonna, you know, go forth with Libra coin. Markets went up like crazy, right? What was the percent on it? You know, we were sitting at, I think it was like at 4,000 something, and you know, within about a matter of a week, we're up at 14,000, right? Because of Libra coin. Now other people say it's this, it's that, but I just find it so convenient and such a coincidence that markets either go up or down after news. You know what I mean? So I had a feeling, I'm getting to a point, guys. I had a feeling that, the markets would crash because we've learned from this, we've seen this and studied it, and we've learned from our past, these past hype things like backed on ETFs. So I had a feeling it was going to crash, and I told everybody, hey, maybe after this hearing, which was yesterday, this will happen, which it did. Now today, day 2, to say that to see Bitcoin go past like, I don't know, 50% in one day, that would be pretty crazy, but it's not impossible, right? That's something we've learned in this space, that, the volatility, the volatility is pretty consistent, and 30% spreads isn't nothing too crazy here, right? So expect the unexpected in terms of the spread, right? The dip in the spread. So me, I was like, you know what, man, I'm gonna send a little bit of Bitcoin that I got in my ledger to my Binance wallet here. And yeah, I put that into stable coin around like 9,500 and something, right? And, the markets did go up a little bit, 9,800, 9,700, but none to get too frantic about. I'm still going to wait to see what happens after this, what do you call it? This hearing. Are we back, first of all? Okay, we back. I think we're back, guys. Let's tune back in, all right? Oh, I got a different link here. Fox Business. Okay, hold on. Let me try to fix this here because I do have another feed that's showing. Oh no, that's from the beginning. Yeah, okay. They're on break still. So anyways, that was my thought process, guys, and I do apologize for the whole confusion that's going on right now. But yeah, so I pretty much put into a stable coin. It could backfire in my face. It could not. Hey, it is what it is, man. I'm not trying to be Mr. Right here. I'm just letting you guys know what I did. I know somebody did comment here in the live chat that how they see it going otherwise. The other direction, which it is. It went up about just over 200 since then. So maybe he's onto something. But if there's another thing we could learn is this. Yeah, technical analysis is important. But right now, in this day and age, with cryptocurrency, you know what overrules TA? It's FA, fundamental analysis. And that's a fact, not fiction. So the markets and your Fibonacci and your Elliott waves could be telling you, yeah, it's bullish, but say something like this comes out of nowhere, like the SEC talking about banning crypto or whatever. What's going to happen to your TA? That's going to just crumble. Right, so yeah, I tend to pay more attention to the FA side, so that's why I said, hey, this is going to dictate a lot, at least for today, temporarily. Okay, guys, short term. What we got here? David Morales is chatting up in the live chat. They're on break. Okay, I read that. So Crypto Boy 123 asks, and I do got to verify something here. He does ask, WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and Libra will lead the masses knowing about the word cryptocurrency, which will lead to huge. Is that huge or hedge? Huge demand and Bitcoin and top 10 to 20 coins in my opinion. Okay, let's put it like this. Right? I actually stepped out for a coffee, guys. That's why I kind of missed the I was late here. Okay, let's talk real. Now this may be a little bit too true for people to really grasp or to accept or to admit that this may be right, but again, everybody is entitled to their own opinion. This is my opinion. Now, I'm not for Facebook. Oh, shit, man. This bitch had to interrupt me. I was getting to a good point.
The gentleman from Colorado, Mr.
All right.
Tipton.
I'll leave that for another feed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Marcus, thank you for being here. Fascinating conversation. And I think a lot of the questions that are
I'm hearing an echo.
Expressing concerns, not for innovation, but
okay, that's
just
done.
In terms of what we're going to be seeing come out the end once the process is.
By the way, I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out with me today, right? You guys could find this on another channel, but for you guys to be here on mine, it means a lot, right? So thank you.
Talking about with Libra in terms of being a security and ETF, you said possibly a commodity that could be there. Along those lines, when you're looking at your association, Libra Association, you've got Visa, MasterCard. Are you doing any active recruitment, talking to any other financial institutions to be able to be on the association?
Congressman, the association membership is actually open. as long as members meet the criteria that has been published. Of course, that could be subject to change and is in control of the Libra Association, but we expect that there will be a number of financial institutions, including banks, joining its ranks.
Will that have continued monitoring as you bring in association members, just to make sure that bad actors don't potentially get into the association?
Yes, Congressman.
Okay. You know, one of the things that we've had...
The bad actors like you guys, Congress? Mm-hmm.
The ability to be able to identify who those people are. And wanted to be able to follow a little bit up on that in terms of the commitment that you're seeing coming out of Calibra. We passed and signed into law last year the Mobile Act to be able to open up a bank account with your driver's license. But it was followed with a commitment from the banks that that information would be eliminated once the account was open, wasn't going to be retained. Are you making the same type of commitments?
Congressman, the general desire as far as the Calibra wallet is concerned is to only retain the data for as long as it actually is required to operate the service, not any longer. So if the government-issued ID that is captured is not of any use, notably for protections, then we will commit to the same rule.
Okay, and I think it's important because not to parse on words, but when you say desire to, I think that's something that we'd like to be able to see a commitment to in terms of the policies that you're going to be putting in just to be able to protect privacy, because I think it's been spoken here several times. You know, there are some real concerns over Facebook and issues with privacy right now. You know, you've talked a lot about also wanting to be able to reach out to the underserved, talking about overseas payments, but we have actual banking deserts within the United States right now. One of the key components is obviously to be able to have high-speed internet access. My home state of Colorado, we have 14% of our population which does not have access to high-speed internet. Do you have any plans to be able to do outreach, to be able to build out some of those networks, to be able to provide the access that you said you'd like to see for underserved markets?
Wow. Congressman, not as part of the Calibra effort per se. That being said, Facebook has invested and continues to invest in providing access around the world, and will continue doing so. But as far as the Calibra wallet is concerned, we're really focused on that population that currently has smartphones and a basic data plan and is underserved or not served at all by current financial.
Dude, what's this guy talking about areas in America that does not have Wi-Fi access? What does it have to do with Libra's cryptocurrency or Bitcoin? You guys got to fix that shit. This is not about that.
The Libra Association represent a point of competition for traditional financial institutions and the payment systems as they overlap on some of the core functions between your proposal and the kind of products that your proposal could lead to into the regulated institutions. Do you believe that Calibra and the Libra Foundation Association should be subject to some of the same regulations on the banking side as our financial institutions are?
Congressman, first, I want to recognize the role that community banks play. It's absolutely essential, and I hope that they can participate in services on top of the Libra network as well. And as far as banking regulation, if we ever enter into providing banking services, which right now we're not considering, then yes, we would need to have proper banking regulation. But as it's contemplated right now, as far as the Calibra wallet is concerned, we're going to be focused on payments.
Okay, great. And my time's expired. Thank you. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Oh my God, you had your TV time, bro.
The gentlewoman
Just stupid
from
questions.
Ohio, Mrs. Beatty, who is also the chair for the Subcommittee on Diversity and Inclusion, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you, Mr. Marcus, for being here today. Kind of a great segue for me with my colleague talking about the under and the unbanked. You've heard a lot today, and we've tried to gather a lot of information, whether it was cybersecurity, governance, antitrust, investment, ownership, and now the and underbanked. As you heard, I am the chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Subcommittee. So when I hear under and unbanked, traditionally that goes to a lot of people who have some challenges economically. I have pulled and gone through your white paper, and as I look at that, it wasn't very unique in your problem statement to me when you were citing 1.7 billion adults globally remain outside of the financial system, and that Libra will connect the world to them in a unified financial ecosystem. I think that's a lot of words, but when I think about the under and unbanked, here is the question that I want to ask you. I want to focus on one of the reasons that I read that Libra gives us for why we need a global currency, and that is to address the millions of unbanked and underbanked people in the world. Despite this claim, in response to a question at yesterday's Senate Banking Committee hearing from Senator Brown, you stated that Libra is not designed to compete with bank accounts. Additionally, you said in response to Senator Kennedy that Libra will not engage in banking. Can you tell me how Libra, bank and unbanked and underbanked, how you will work with them if it's not meant to compete with the banking accounts, and if you're not engaging in banking?
Well, I'm glad you asked the question, Congresswoman, and I want to separate the different types of services that will be provided.
You have to do that quickly because I have 2 more questions.
I'll do my best. So the first one is that we are.
So let me ask you this way: yes or no? Are you competing with banking?
Let the guy respond, man.
No, Congresswoman, but we will offer.
Do you consider yourself a bank?
No, because we will not offer.
Are you taking people's money and letting them pay for things, letting them transfer monies?
We will be active in payments services.
These are the people who run the current monetary system. See these people over here? They like to be on high on the pedestal, the ones pointing fingers, the ones saying how it should be done, and they don't even give you a chance to respond back to them. Okay, that's the corruption in centralized ecosystems or centralized monetary systems that we live today. That's why I like my trustless Bitcoin, my trustless cryptocurrency networks like Ethereum and EO. It's trustless. We don't have to go through this bullshit.
Banking, because in my mind it's...
She is pretty much like a node. Think of her like Congress people. This is how the governance it comes to a consensus. She is like a node. Congressmen are nodes on the network, okay? But they're people. They could be bribed. They could have a self-serving agenda. They're not an algorithm. They're not a node or a computer who doesn't have feelings. Hence, trustless system.
And get bought out all the time. So if you bought those things, would that give you more power?
It would not, Congresswoman, because in the way that the governance is currently structured, no one entity can have more than one voice or 1% of the vote.
So let me go to, someone asked about the training in financial literacy. We know those who are unbanked and underbanked are that for a reason. This is very complicated. We have some of the best minds here on both sides.
Oh, shut
and
up.
clearly there's a lot of unanswered questions, or clearly you can tell from our questions there's a lot of disagreement with this. How do you take somebody from my district who is underbanked or unbanked and educate them if it's no financial literacy? They think you're a bank. Because even when you mention PayPal and those systems, which you were the president of, I used PayPal as a store owner, but it was tied to my credit card. It was tied to the regulations of the federal government.
It's a transaction system, lady.
So how do you tell
it's
us
a distributed
that it's
ledger
not banking?
technology
Because if it's
or
not
network.
tied to any of those things, how does it work? Where's my protection? What happens if I do this and we already know I'm ignorant to the process, and then I want my money, I want my Libras back? Can I get them all back?
Yes.
With no problems, I can get them all back and put that money back into my account.
Yes, Congresswoman, in the same way that PayPal and others are connected to the banking system, Libra wallet will be also connected.
My time is up.
Okay, good, because I was going to cut your ass off anyways.
Thank you.
So this is what I would say too, guys. So remember, Facebook, Libra coin, they're actually advertising themselves as a payment coin within their organization or their company. So they want to pay employees with this token or Libra coin, whatever. Now, and I'll get back to the program. I do apologize. But what Congress is focusing on is you want to be a bank. You want to be bigger than this social media platform that you are, that's turned into the leading news source for billions of people across the world. Now you want to be a bank. That's what they're fixating on. But it's kind of like, would you go attack a big corporation that, say, you may work for, that pays you a weekly check or a bi-weekly check? Are they a bank? No, they're paying their clients. Or sorry, they're paying their employees. That's what Facebook is doing. It's a payment coin for them to pay their employees. At least that's what they say.
It has businesses all over the country nervous. And we're at the beginning of hurricane season. We still can't get the flood insurance package to a vote on the floor. So I understand the interest in this new idea. I'm from the old school, but I think our time would be much better spent working on issues that will benefit the American people immediately, rather than preemptively trying to stop this idea from even being explored by Facebook and other industry participants. We should not discourage the private sector. I'm a big private sector guy. We should not discourage the private sector from investing their own time, their own money, to research these new technologies. No matter what policies we enact up here in Congress, the private sector is the engine that creates solutions to some of these great problems. And Mr. Marcus, I applaud your entrepreneurial spirit, and it leads me to believe you are probably a capitalist, are you not?
Wow.
That's a yes or...
I believe we all are in this country.
Okay, thank you. That's good. That helps our record there. And also, so with that in mind, would you believe that the private sector, rather than the government, is better suited to explore the potentials of blockchain technology in the financial services space?
Congressman, I believe that in this specific case, it requires both the innovation capabilities of the private sector and the oversight of the government and regulatory bodies for this project to be successful specifically.
Okay. So Facebook has already stated that it won't launch the cryptocurrency in India due to regulatory issues. Can you explain the issues you ran into in India, and do you anticipate that you will not be able to launch this project in other countries?
Congressman, there will be countries in which the Libra wallet itself will not be able to operate. But since the network is interoperable and other wallets can emerge in different regions and transactions are possible between wallets, unlike the current system which constrains transactions within one wallet, we believe that others will emerge in other countries that will enable access to a number of people who currently don't have access to modern financial services.
Okay. Something that I saw in your white paper is that the Libra Association will be run as a nonprofit, yet it will pay dividends to investors who provide capital to jumpstart the ecosystem. So can you go into greater detail on how you reconcile the association being a nonprofit, yet you will pay dividends to the investors?
Yes, Congressman. So the association is a non-profit membership-based association under the laws of Switzerland that are slightly different. But that being said, and the goal for the association is not to generate a profit, but if it has to pay out income streams, it will pay taxes on those income streams as covered by the Swiss law.
Okay. As a small business owner, I'm a Main Street America guy, 50 years in business. I see the benefits that this could have on remittance payments to other countries and with the lowering transaction costs. So innovation is a good thing, and there is no reason we should be stopping this idea so early in its existence. With that being said, I begin to get concerned if this were going to be used in lending. So is the eventual goal to use cryptocurrency for lending?
That was BitConnect.
Congressman, as far as
lending program?
the Libra wallet is concerned, it doesn't have any plans to do so as of now. I do believe that there might be banks around the world that might want to engage in those types of services, but this is definitely the province of banks and
1% a day.
Something that the Libra wallet will do itself, and it's not in the plans right now.
Okay, real quick, the white paper also states that the Libra blockchain is pseudonymous, as you say, and allows users to hold one or more addresses that are not linked to their real-world identity. How do you plan on striking the correct balance between privacy and a user's ability to hide criminal activities?
I'm really glad you asked this question, Congressman, because I think this is misunderstood. The fact that there's no personally identifiable information on the blockchain is not a virtue of the fact that people are not identified on the platform. It is just that it would be irresponsible to have personal data be publicly available. That being said, wallets and on and off ramps will be regulated and have proper KYC.
Okay, my time's back. Thank you for being here today.
The gentleman from Guam, Mr. San Nicolas, who is also the Vice Chair for the Committee on Financial Services, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Somebody told me that nation is very crypto-friendly, Guam. Let's see what he says.
Mr. Marcus, what does the organization project the average user will have as a Libra balance?
Congressman, we have not projected average balances at this point.
You really expect me to believe that? Facebook is built around average users, average number of hits. Visa, MasterCard, all these huge players are signing up, and you guys have no idea how much you expect to have in the average Libra account?
Congressman, it will really vary depending on where the usage of Libra, the currency, and the network.
Okay, so can you give me a low estimate and a high estimate of what the variation is expected to be?
Congressman, again, we have not made projections for this, but we would be happy to follow up with your office and your team when we do.
Well, I think that, well, first of all, I'm absolutely disbelieve that. Like I said, those organizations are built around understanding their users and what they're anticipating their usage is going to be. And I think that you're just trying to hide that figure because when you actually start doing the math, it becomes very, very alarming. In your own post, sir, you mentioned that billions of users. We firmly believe that if Libra is successful, it can be a non-linear step change for billions of people who need it the most. So if we're talking about $100 in a Libra account, you're talking about $100 billion. If you're talking about $1,000 in a Libra account, if you're talking about $10,000 in a Libra account. And so I think that the amounts that we're talking about in terms of an average user is critical in order to understand the full scope of how pervasive this kind of action is going to be. And I'm going to go through why that is so critical. You have 28 founding members, a lot of big shot companies that have come together.
This is important, guys. Pay attention.
And surely under the radar. And the white paper that you submitted says that you will have 100 members in the second half of 2020, which is a year from now. That's 72 new members. You're going to triple your growth in 1 year. And you guys don't even know what the average Libra wallet is going to hold. We're just going to pretend that that figure is some unknown number, but we're going to bring in 72 new players. Are any of these players Fortune 500 companies?
Yes, Congressman.
So how are you able to convince Visa and MasterCard and 72 new Fortune 500 companies to sign up for something without even knowing what the average user amount is going to be?
Congressman, I want to respectfully say
that guy
I'm
was in
not
front of
hiding
me,
anything. I'm here responding truthfully to all the questions with the information I have at this time.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're saying, but sensibly. You know, I think we can all be sensible people. You won't get these huge Fortune 500 companies signing up if they don't understand what they're signing up for.
Is BTC kind of tumbling a bit there? Somebody, who's the TA guy watching us live? I think it was Safety. Check it out for us, please.
90 million businesses on the Facebook platform that are going to be able to attest to how this is going to be something that's going to be an empowerment for those businesses. And that's just the Facebook platform. We're not talking about the MasterCard platform, the Visa platform, or the platform of these 72 other companies that are all lining up without any kind of idea of how much they're actually going to be getting involved with. And this is so important because we're talking about billions of users and tens or even hundreds of dollars. That's money that's getting sucked out of the U.S. financial system and being put into whatever this cabal is putting together in terms of Libra and Calibra.
This cabal.
The USA has less than 5% of the global population, and yet
Buddy, you represent the biggest cabal.
Global GDP in dollars. That many users and that many dollars means that the USA is going to be disproportionately affected by Calibra and Libra. And once we impact disproportionately US dollar demand by sucking dollars into Libras, interest rates will have to rise to attract dollar-denominated investors. Higher interest rates will injure the US economy and US jobs. Higher interest rates, perhaps more importantly, will raise the financing cost of funding US military operations and national security. And if that's going to be the case, how do we put a stop to it? Let's say we have hundreds of millions of users in the US, and they've all put in, thousands of their own dollars. How do we put a stop to it once that risk presents itself? Because if that risk presents itself and we can't put a stop to it, what happens then? And if you think that the Congress or the elected leaders are going to be able to put a stop to it, one thing that you need to realize is, when you have hundreds of millions of users in thousands of districts, it's going to be next to impossible politically to do that. I need more time.
These guys just love hearing their own
From
voice.
Georgia,
They don't
Mr.
even let the guy
Laverne is
respond.
recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Marcus, thank you for being here. I know it's been a long day. Look, I want to thank you for not only your time being here, but the willingness to look at new ways of doing things. That's been the strength of our country. Quite frankly, I don't care for Facebook. It is a nightmare for many of us in this type of position. I don't care for some of the filtering that's done, suppressing some of our posts because of political content, but you're a private business. That's your right to do so. But I do appreciate anyone who challenges the status quo to look for something new and a better way of doing it. We have concerns here. And I think this is actually a platform that we can address those concerns. We can begin a dialogue, and I appreciate that. What you're experiencing right now has been experienced through any innovator throughout our history. The Washington Post in the early 1900s had an article entitled, "Man Will Never Fly and Shouldn't." And it went through all the reasons why we should even stop testing an airplane, especially when you had two bicycle mechanics from Dayton, Ohio, trying to fly when scientists and engineers couldn't. Thomas Edison, there were dozens and dozens of articles written about how the light bulb was a dangerous invention if it was ever accomplished and would be a public health threat, and it should be stopped immediately.
I brought that up
Now,
before.
all of those ended up being great advancements that rightfully so was regulated by government for those public safety and health benefit reasons that it could be done safely. But the point is, we can't demean these things until we actually look into them. And this is what the dialogue I want to have. I have concerns. I do have concerns, but I think unless I'm willing to express those concerns and I'm willing to actually hear your answers, we're getting nowhere. And so with that, I don't want to use up all my time. One of the big concerns of mine, spending time in the IT industry and data security, is, look, cryptocurrency is used for illicit financing. We know that. Money laundering, terrorism, financing, human trafficking. In fact, it's estimated that criminals used cryptocurrency to steal $1.7 billion from investors just last year. And 56% of that happened here in the United States. The Treasury Secretary, said he's concerned that Libra could be used for these purposes. How can you assure us and the American people that this isn't going to be just another illicit financing tool?
Congressman, thank you, and I share this concern, and this is actually something that I care about personally a great deal. I don't want the creation that we're working towards to be used for those types of purposes at all. And we believe that with the appropriate controls, with the proper AML programs, the proper KYC on and off ramps, that we will improve on the current system. There's a lot of illicit activities that are currently happening on our existing financial system. And I actually believe that with the combination of the right technology and ability for law enforcement and regulators to also have a view into some of the movements, that we will improve on the efficacy of AML and counterterrorism funding programs.
So some of the pushback we've gotten from law enforcement, I've been an advocate for looking at blockchain for the technology.
All right, I got to interrupt for a sec. I really do, man. And I'll tell you what this fiasco is all about for these Congress guys, all right? So clearly, these guys are not interested, and I'm going to have to show myself a little bit bigger here. So, guys, clearly, these guys are not interested in hearing any answers, you know? It's almost like a competition, you know? They love hearing themselves. They love hearing their own voice. They're not really interested for this guy to respond. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like they're trying to show off in front of their peers. Who could get the most attention? Who could look the most serious? That scary senator. You know what I mean? He just put goosebumps on him, you know? Like, they're not interested in any replies. So at the end of the day, you really ain't going to get nothing done here, because if their motives were truly pure and to really sort this out to see if Facebook coin is good for whatever the world or not, they'll actually let the guy talk and finish off his answers. But no, yes or no, yes or no. Oh, that's too long. You got to hurry up. I got 5 minutes. You only want to hear your own damn self. It's kind of like Shark Tank. You know, when investors go to Shark Tank and they try to plead their case, those guys, those investors, Mark Cuban and the other dudes there, they're always friggin' just talking shit about it, and they never really want to, like, hear the guy out. So this is how I feel about this, and I'll shut up too.
Congressman, again, it's really not for me to say who should regulate us, but we've definitely been engaged with not only FSOC, but all of the agencies under the FSOC umbrella. We will engage mostly in payments services. But it's not for us to determine, in my opinion.
Okay. Thank you.
The gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Presley, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Waters. I really do appreciate your continued leadership in returning this committee to its oversight role. And I want to emphasize to you, Mr. Marcus, and to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, the reason we are here today is oversight, or more accurately, the lack of oversight in this space. The fact that we have arrived this far along in the conversation without any regulatory guardrails to inform the development of this project on its face, just that fact alone is a problem. It is long past time that we stop compromising on consumers' privacy in the pursuit of profit. When consumers' well-being is on the line, echoing the sentiments of the gentleman from Arkansas, we cannot afford to simply trust, but not verify. And so that's what we're here to do today. That is to verify. So, Mr. Marcus, yes or no, since my time is short, are you familiar with the content of Facebook's press release announcing the launch of Calibra?
I am, Congresswoman.
Great. At the end of your press release, there is a disclaimer that states, and I quote, "These forward-looking statements may differ materially from actual results due to a variety of factors and uncertainties, many of which are beyond our control," unquote. In it, you go on to admit that this is all, quote, "based on assumptions that you believe to be reasonable," unquote, as of the date of this press release. Chairwoman, I ask for unanimous consent to submit to the record Facebook's press release announcing the launch of Calibra.
Without objection, such is the order.
So, yes or no, would you trust your money with a company that essentially admits it's just winging it?
Congresswoman, I don't believe that is the case, and this is why we've shared our white papers and our ideas.
Reclaiming my time. The disclaimer ends by saying that, quote,
"See what I mean?
You undertake no obligation to update these statements as a result of new information or future events," unquote. But again, moving on. On the issue of underbanking, which is an issue this committee is very committed to addressing under the leadership of Chairwoman Waters, Representative Beatty was citing your white paper where you identify 1.7 billion people globally who lack access to financial institutions. That is a lot of people. Half of all adults who don't have bank accounts are living in just 7 countries: Bangladesh, China, India, Indonesia, Mexico, Nigeria, and Pakistan.
Nigeria.
Yes or no, are any of Libra's 27 partner organizations based in these countries?
Not at this stage, Congresswoman, but by the time we get to 100 members, we hope to have a more representative slate of the very people that we want to serve.
Mr. Marcus, do you believe, as has been claimed, that authentication is the reason many of these people don't have bank accounts?
Congresswoman,
lack of
there are a number
resources.
of issues, but my understanding is yes, identity is a big
Okay,
problem,
moving
and
on,
cost is
reclaiming my,
even a greater problem.
reclaiming my time. So the same World Bank report finds that almost 2/3 of people who don't have bank accounts say it's because they lack enough money to open one. So here's a rapid fire round for you, Mr. Marcus. Does the Calibra wallet require a bank account? Yes or no?
No, Congresswoman.
Does the Calibra wallet require a smartphone?
Yes, and now you can buy one for
Reclaiming my time. Would these potential users be paid any interest on the money they store in Libra currency?
Congresswoman, it is like cash, and as a result, it doesn't earn interest.
Okay. So if your solution to the world's unbanked is a currency that requires them to have a bank account, a smartphone.
Honestly, guys, my blood is just boiling right now watching this woman, man.
What the source of and root of the problem really is. It's clear to me when it comes to Facebook and its initiatives, we simply cannot trust or verify. But I would add and underscore that the reason we are here and that you even have this opportunity to pursue is because the Federal Reserve has failed. Because the Federal Reserve has failed to offer Americans an equitable, reliable, efficient, safe, and secure system to access and move their monies. I yield.
I yield. Oh my God. Same thing I was saying, guys. Reclaiming my time. That's just another way of saying, hey, I just want to hear my own voice. I don't care what you got to say. All right? So almost like they practice these lines in front of the mirror at home.
Gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Davidson, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
You know, it's like they practice these lines in the mirror the night before. I'm like, oh, I don't want to hear your reply. I don't want to hear your answer. I'm not interested in that because I might forget my next question. So I reclaim my time. Next question. Like, what's the point of this then, right? It's pure bullying, man.
Marcus, I appreciate you being here on behalf of Facebook and in some ways representative from the Libra Association because you've brought to the world's attention a space that previously has been dynamic in the American market, lots of American innovators, but you see a lot of companies leaving the U.S. market for Switzerland, for Singapore, for others, not to avoid U.S. laws, but to find the regulatory certainty that we've highlighted does not currently exist in the United States today. So with that, Madam Chairwoman, my hope is that the committee will hold future hearings on cryptocurrency regulation so we can properly address these issues and, as we've seen, not entirely conflate them with Facebook's mixed messages here or mixed history across numerous other platforms, if they are platforms. Already, there are several legislative proposals in Congress that address the cryptocurrency sector, including the Token Taxonomy Act, a bill which...
Hey guys, just to hear the word cryptocurrency or the words cryptocurrency come out of their mouth on being televised, that's a win-win situation in itself. Any publicity is good publicity, right? So we're good.
Libra as a currency from many other tokens in this space is centralization. So when you look at an open blockchain token or you look at the Bitcoin that has come to represent the entire blockchain to many people. It's like, you know, the architecture is the internet, but the specific instance is a website. So people know this famous website, Bitcoin, but they're not really able to associate the broader architecture of blockchain. And just like Facebook launched and many other things will continue to launch, when the internet was in its early stages, we couldn't conceive of all the specific instances that would take place on the internet. In the blockchain space, in the tokenized economy, we're not really yet able to foresee all the specific applications. So that's why I think it's very important that we continue to hold hearings on the topic. Tokens could represent title to a car, deed to a land, software license, goods or services. But what you're proposing is essentially different. It's a currency. It's not just a payment system. Calibra is a payment system. But you want to do it in a way that's different with the means of exchange. A store of value that is exchanged in a similar way to currency. Not yet legal tender, not required to be accepted everywhere, but essentially how's this different than what Christine Lagarde at the International Monetary Fund proposed as a synthetic currency?
Congressman, the first big difference is that unlike the SDR that you're referencing, this digital currency will be available to consumers and will be designed as a medium of exchange from the ground up.
Yeah, I don't think that's different at all. It's just whether the central banker is the Libra Association or the IMF. So you're
Hey guys, so we are hitting about close to about 2 hours for this live stream. As where is he? SAFU Mafo says, I reclaim my time after watching this crap. Holy shit! To be honest, I always told people I don't really cover mainstream news when it comes to cryptocurrencies, just because manipulation, and I don't know. A lot of other people or who on YouTube channels, they like to chase the news for views, what I like to say. But I think this is newsworthy, right? So this is why I'm covering it, and I'll surely be covering more hot topics similar to this because, yeah, I mean, this does play a big role in the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem, right? Whether you're for Facebook or not. So, but hey, I just want to say probably when we get to about 2 hours, I might shut off this live stream and go on with the day. So I do thank everybody for joining. I might chill out for about 5 minutes after that, hear your thoughts and whatnot. Okay, guys? So let's take in the rest of the hearing, about 20 more minutes, and I'll call it quits. Thanks.
Hispanic confirmed at a hearing last week that it does not matter that the stablecoin does not have an expectation of profits. The expectation of profit is key because of the structure of it. In the case here, it would be regulated as a security. Setting that aside, we look at the other issues. The board, I mean, I'm going to have to submit a ton of these in terms of questions. When you look at the know your customer provisions, and I listen to so many of my colleagues talk about how are we going to prevent illicit finance, I look forward to seeing Secretary Mnuchin or Chairman Powell asked how we're going to regulate the dollar. Mr. Duffy had an exact right point. And if you at Facebook or the Libra Association presume to sit over top of this and filter transactions the same way that you filter content on your alleged platform, I think the public is going to be out. Last, I would say, do you plan to launch this outside the United States if you can't get regulatory certainty in the United States?
Congressman, I'm glad you asked the question, and we will not actually proceed until we get all of the concerns addressed and the proper regulatory oversight here in the U.S.
Thank you. My time has expired.
The gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Gottheimer, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and Mr. Marcus, thank you for being here today. Facebook claims that its new Libra venture is motivated in part by a desire to serve the unbanked. While I appreciate this motivation, I'm a little confused on how your product will directly help the un- and underbanked. Given that the unbanked are operating solely with cash, how is a person who's unable to open a bank account going to be able to open a Libra account, convert their cash to Libra, and then transmit those Libra to third parties?
Thank you for your question, Congressman. The way that the Calibra wallet will approach this is in partnership with agents of, cash-in and cash-out agents in the relevant countries where banking penetration is very low. And as a result, consumers that don't have bank accounts will have the ability to access the Libra network and buy and sell Libra.
So they have to have a center where they would go to actually convert, and you'd have to hope that they would set those up?
Congressman, we would use existing network of cash-in and cash-out. Again, this is speaking for the Calibra wallet.
Okay, thank you. I think we agree on a key point that blockchain technology is inevitable, and I believe that the new frontiers presented by blockchain and similar financial technologies are an opportunity for American leadership, economic growth, and job creation, and versus losing out, as has been discussed, to China and to Europe and others. In my district, the 5th District of New Jersey, so many different people work in the financial sector or on the cutting edge of financial technology, and it can be a tremendous job creator for the state. We also agree that we need to create an environment that encourages technologies to start here, grow here, and create U.S. jobs rather than going overseas. So even though the Libra Association is currently composed of 28 American companies, I'm deeply concerned that Libra will be based in Switzerland, as you've also heard, right? I mean, this is a big concern of ours. And so I think, echoing Mr. Davison and others, would you agree that part of the reason why you made the decision was not to avoid guardrails, but instead to avoid the lack of legislative certainty we have here in the United States?
Congressman, again, thank you for raising this, because the choice of Switzerland, again, had nothing to do with us evading our responsibilities or oversight. But we really wanted the Libra Association and the Libra digital currency to be recognized globally as a unit of measure that was acceptable, and as a result, Switzerland offered the international platform to doing that. And we hope that one day, many, many years down the line, that the Libra Association can work very closely with organizations hosted in Geneva, like the WTO, the WHO, and the Bank of International Settlement in Basel.
And we've heard quite a bit, many of us, though, just if I could unpack that a little bit more, and why Mr. Davidson and I and others are working on the Token Taxonomy Act, which is bipartisan legislation, as you just heard, which provides some rules of the road for blockchain with a light touch, but leave space for American innovation. So we've heard part of our goal, because many companies that have been to our offices have said, hey, we need some certainty here, we need some guardrails. I mean, maybe it's not Facebook, but others have certainly said to us, hey, the reason we're going elsewhere is because we don't actually know, we don't know the rules of the road here. Have you heard that? Is that something, and may not have factored into your decision making in that direct case, but is that something you've heard from partners you've talked to?
Congressman, yes, I've heard from different companies in the space that regulatory clarity would be helpful. Yes.
And I know you've seen our piece of legislation. Are there other things that you think we should be doing to help the United States establish itself as a global leader on cryptocurrencies? Other steps we could be taking in this body?
Congressman, I think the first thing we can do is ensure that projects that are within the right oversight and done responsibly actually see the light of day instead of losing our leadership to other nations that are plowing ahead.
Right. I mean, that is one of our big concerns here is losing that space, but also making sure that our people don't, as you pointed out, don't evade, whether it's on privacy issues or others, evade U.S. jurisdiction just to do that. And I think it's a very big concern, I know, of me and many of my colleagues. And we are very concerned. And this affects a lot of people, and especially, as I pointed out, the unbanked and the underbanked is that I'm worried about as time goes on, and how do we make sure that we don't abandon them in this process. I think it's very, very important as we grow. I yield back. Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Budd, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's important that members of this committee be able to differentiate between Libra, which, as I'm understanding it, is not truly cryptocurrency, and then other tokens like Bitcoin before discussing legislation. And I would encourage members to use outside groups like Coin Center, Blockchain Association, Digital Chamber as resources. Those are very helpful, and they provide a lot of clarity. And topics like this require a different sort of regulation, and so the more educated we become, the better. So if America is to remain and continue to grow.
Okay, guys, so this will be the last, congressman to say his piece. We'll wait for the response, and then I'll probably talk for a couple of minutes and call it quits. Okay, guys?
Or even this, Libra. But we must differentiate between Libra and similar tokens to Bitcoin from Libra. So, Mr. Marcus, I want to talk about the issue of Libra remaining politically neutral. I know this came up yesterday in the Senate, and my colleagues who've gone before me, including Mr. Duffy, Barr, and Davidson, and some others, have raised concerns on this, and I share those same concerns. So in that vein, do you have any guidelines in place at this point in the process on how you will maintain political neutrality on your platform? And if not, will you commit to us today that you will develop guidelines and make those guidelines transparent to the public?
It's an important question, Congressman, and there are two parts to this answer. The first is at the Libra Association, and the Libra Association will naturally not have oversight or decision-making around how Libra can be used as long as it's lawful uses. And then the second part is the Calibra wallet, and my commitment to you is that as far as policies comes, we will be very thoughtful, and we will share these with you when we get closer to finalizing the policies that are specific to the Calibra wallet.
Thank you. And when you said, you were talking about part one, the Libra Association, to be differentiated from Calibra, you said if it's lawful. So I think Mr. Duffy really pointed this out, that if it's lawful, it should be able to be used, you should be able to use Libra, and not the whims of the ideology of Facebook. My concern is that you're going to let hearings like these where you get hooked or you get nailed on national TV and let that inform decisions about who you do business with, who you don't do business with, similar to financial institutions that have sat right where you did. You know, we
Crypto lifestyle, don't fake the shit on your channel. Content created came from TCL. You hate hard, but you know I'm gonna wish you well.